Yo, what's good with y'all, man? It's for real hoops, and you already know today we about to be talking about some hoops. As y'all can see in the title of today's video, and probably in y'all Bleacher Report notifications if y'all be having shit like that turned on y'all devices. But anyways, Kyrie has requested a trade out of the Brooklyn Nets. I'm not gonna hold y'all, no cap at all. I already seen this coming ever since they had that whole vaccination mandation thing happen in 2021. And it was just a matter of when the cookie crumbles at that point. And whether you were a Nets or Kyrie fan, it always felt like his tenure with the Nets was full of drama and off-the-court distractions. They had James Harden for a brief moment in time and an opportunity to capitalize on a super team being built of a three-headed monster. And then you got rumors of him being eventually frustrated with Kyrie's part-time status and getting traded away. Then you had the whole situation earlier this season where they sat him out a few games over the controversial post that he put it on social media. Then I'm not even going to sit up here and jack like this is the major end-all be-all of his decision. But even with KD being out, he's currently playing with a former All-Star who is 26 years old, who is literally scared to shoot the ball, who was literally vetted to this team to be a second or third option in these type of situations.
Irving sees a seam, drops it off, Simmons dishes.
First off, him and KD had way too much power over who was really getting hired and fired in that place. Then you had Harden leaving after he saw that there was just an uncertainty with their future in that franchise, which proved them right considering the trade that they did to get rid of him and getting swept in last year's playoffs in the first round of Boston. And I don't think anybody would have been tripping about them losing the series because they are a good team, granted, with Boston, and they did end up making the finals. But being the only sweep in the first round is crazy, which was a series loss that showed high volumes of their team's dysfunction with chemistry at that time. Then you got KD wanting to get traded out of there last summer, and then that didn't go through after Kyrie accepted his player option. So now we're here, and with less than a week before the trade deadline coming to fruition and how quiet this trade deadline's been, this might be exactly what the Brooklyn Nets and other teams needed in order to shake up the trade deadline and actually apply pressure for teams to make moves to shift the power balance of the parity in the league right now. And speaking of applying pressure, I mean, I know y'all see the title of the video, but even with Kyrie requesting a trade, teams might really not want him. Maybe the market isn't that high, and maybe we see him in a Brooklyn jersey once again next season. After all, we are living in the golden era of guards in the NBA, so don't be surprised if teams aren't willing to take the risk and are pretty content with what they got at the guard position. Kyrie has voiced that he wouldn't mind staying with Brooklyn, but they really haven't voiced the same reciprocation in keeping him. Along with the trade request, Kyrie is also asking for a 4-year max and avoiding any deals that require stipulations within the contract. And if the Nets fail to comply, then he is going to walk in the summer for nothing. What makes trading Kyrie even more difficult, with that being said, is the fact that if a team really wants to go and acquire for him, and let's just say Kyrie's not trying to ring chase or he just wants to ball out in a good environment, that franchise and organization is not only going to have enough trust in Kyrie's health to be available enough to contribute towards success, and also give up some assets and risking that, you know what I'm saying? And also be able to trust the man's character. I mean, we see how the media drags this man's decisions across the water and paint him out to be this teammate that he may or may not be behind closed scenes. So a franchise is really just going to have to take a risk and really see if Kyrie is worth acquiring. Because we all know from a talent perspective, the dude, top 10 point guard, top 25 player in the league, best ball handler of all time. We know what the dude can do on the floor, and he's continuing to do what he does at the age of 30. But the biggest question in Kyrie and what we really don't know is his availability. Let's keep it real. And honestly, we'll see how much the waiting game goes out, because obviously he's not a better player than KD, so I doubt his trade market will be of that. But at the same time, there's going to be some interest. To get to the teams that possibly might end up getting him or have been reported in interest for Kyrie, you have Phoenix, you have Dallas, you have Miami, and have the Lakers. And to quickly breeze through some of these teams without going into salary cap shit, let's just look at it from a surface level for a minute and just how he would fit within some of these rosters. So first off, you got Miami, and him next to Bam Adebayo and Jimmy Butler, and just the culture of Miami. I definitely think this team ceiling would be a finals appearance, as if it would be without him. Miami is always one of those dark horse teams in the league that just have a slow slump at some point in the season, but then rapidly turn it up, and people are like, oh wait, That team is really good, and Jimmy Butler looks like an MVP candidate. And they play hard. They're known for their defense, but their offense is something that has definitely had some stagnation in the past, especially in the postseason. And when it comes to fourth quarter time, who's none better to acquire than Kyrie Irving, next to one of the better closers in the league as well, with Jimmy Butler. And in this hypothetical world, you'd have Bam Adebayo as your third best player, who's a defensive player of the year candidate, and it's continuously evolving his offensive game, making his second All-Star appearance this season. Would be a pretty ideal big three to have in the Eastern Conference, as loaded as it is. Then you got Phoenix. I mean, I've seen them in rumors for Van Fleet. At this point, I think they're just putting out any good point guards that might be rumored in trades and putting that as like a replacement for Phoenix when Chris Paul gets old. So we're just going to skip past that for a minute. When it comes to Dallas, obviously, Luka having some help on that team. A move like this, I'm assuming if Dinwiddie isn't in the deal, would have him moving to the sixth-man spot, and then Kyrie being brought to Dallas, and that would lead to some question marks on the defensive end. But offensively, I could just imagine Jason Kidd would take full advantage of Kyrie's expertise in the mid-range, as we know he loves that mid-range shot in the modern NBA for some reason as much as he does. Give him another avenue of staggering him in Luka's minutes as a way of giving Luka a break from being the primary ball handler in an offense that relies on him way too heavily this season. Not to mention that this backcourt duo would literally give nightmares to opposing defenders in a half-court offense, given that these are two of the best isolation scorers in the league. Their defensive, that's questionable in getting Kyrie in terms of what they would really have to package in order to get Kyrie. That's a question mark. I don't really know if they really have the talent necessary to give up in a trade for Kyrie Irving, but interesting nonetheless in terms of the offensive chemistry between him and Luka. Then you have the Lakers, which would be the most ideal and most likely scenario, although I don't really think they have a package to give up for Kyrie as well. But just thinking of a reality where he's reunited with LeBron, playing with Anthony Davis, and just assuming that the Lakers are able to keep somewhat of their depth. It's a pretty big if, but if those three was to remain healthy to the postseason, and if he was put on this team, I do think that that is the ingredients to a recipe to turning their entire season around. The big question with the Lakers at the beginning of the season is that they didn't really have much depth outside of course, Russ, who was, bad fit. Then you have LeBron and AD. But now they actually have role pieces. You got Pat Bev, you got Dennis Schroeder, you got Thomas Bryant. Do something. And then they got Hachimura. So, I mean, again, it is questions about what package they would really come up for him. But in my opinion, I do believe that whether he ends up in LA, the Clippers, or LA, the Lakers, I do think that those teams are the best possible fits for him. And I'm not a fan of either team, but in terms of how their guard situations have been going with both those rosters this season, he is the most ideal fix for both of their holes, if you want to say. While it's controversial whether he be right or wrong in these situations, it still is a risk nonetheless if you're a franchise paying a player to play for you at the top dollar. Now, today, the landscape of the NBA of stars, I mean, players are definitely going to miss games. So when it's come to him and his health, he's managed to keep good control of that this season, as he's played in 40 of the 51 games that the Brooklyn Nets have played this regular season. And he's managed to average 27, 5, and 5 throughout the course of this year on his usual efficiency, and has been also one of the better second options in the NBA, being part of a great turnaround given how they started the beginning of this season, and continuing to put up monstrous performances in these past 2 weeks with Kevin Durant being out. All of this happening, it really does make me wonder how, the Nets locker room really be when both of your star players have voiced that they really aren't favorable of this organization in less than a year. I know they'll handle it like professionals and slap fives on the screen and shit, but I know there's another part of them that's just God damn, what we do to y'all? You feel what I'm saying? Obviously, Kyrie would be a really solid fit anywhere in terms of offense, but it is the off-court shenanigans, and it's also just a matter of money working, because if he goes to your team, you're not guaranteed a Kyrie Irving unless you provide him with a suitable environment where he feels like staying long-term. So yeah, I mean, a team is really just gonna have to figure that out, and to any team that does, y'all be safe, because as of right now, Kyrie really does have the keys to this NBA trade deadline. And wherever he gets moved to will shift the polarity of the NBA and who really will hold the power in their conference. Being said, if you guys enjoyed the video, leave a like down below and subscribe to the channel if you're new. And if you ain't new, welcome back. You feel me? You already know it's been Swervo Hoops, and we get Liddy in this section. And until next time, I'ma holla at y'all.